G'day guys, welcome to local band Smokeout Australia. I'm your host, CJ the Pineapple Drummer, aka Modus from Chaosis, and today I'm joined by good friend, long-serving veteran of the Australian music scene and the baldest man I know, Mr. Simon from Massic. How are you, man?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Better
What
for
a
better
title.
better for talking to you, mate.
Oh, man. It means a lot you having me back on, man. It's cool.
Dude, we
Yeah,
kicked
thank
it
you.
last time and we talked a lot of shit, but we've got
Ah,
some big reason to talk today, man. It is the one of them is the farewell show to Massic. It is literally called the end of an era, which I
yeah.
think kind of took everyone a little bit by shock. And just before we started the interview, we were talking about things. Everything has an expiry date or some way or another, and it did take everyone by shock. I think it was the talking point for everyone more than the Queen dying a few months ago. So
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Wow.
it's sad, but at the same time, I could imagine that it would have a lot of its reasons, and no band decides to have a last show on such good terms without it being a very unison decision. But I guess everyone would have their own reasons for it. So if you want to
For
elaborate a
sure.
little bit and give everyone a bit of a spiel on what your side of what everything is going on in Massic at the moment, if you wanted to do that, that'd be great.
Sure. So
Whoop.
for those who don't know, you got me?
Yeah, we got you.
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. For those who don't know, who are new to this, I come with a complication of having a really intense heart issue. A couple of the metal community all over Australia, helped with that was incredible. But with that comes a lot of monitoring of what I can and can't do. Now, more to say that I said my part on wanting Massic to end because of my health issues would be not correct, but it definitely makes you reassess your life and what you want to do and what you are capable of doing and what you think you can keep doing with the same amount of passion and physical ability. um,
Mm.
so, yeah, the questions that came along for me was I've just changed. Personally, I'm not the same person I was back a few years ago. For me, it's been 23 years straight in the metal scene, which has been absolutely incredible. Um, 3 albums over 2 bands, a bunch of EPs, one with Evil Eye, two with Massic, one with amazing band Victoria called Abriac, and some older bands. So for me, it was, and I'm turning 40 this year, so it was just like you reflect a lot on like what you've done in your life, what you want to do, and simply, I got to a point in my life where I went, I just don't know if I can give it the same love that I've been giving it that entire time. And
Mm.
that was concerning for me. Um, I love doing it, and with the if I can't do it with the amount of gusto and passion that I could do it, then I just won't do it. And
Mm.
this is how I operate. And
Yeah.
I started to feel like I was changing, and I love being a punter of metal. I love writing reviews and that for Heavy Mag and all that. And as far as playing in Massic, I'm just so satisfied as a bandmate and as a musician. We just released our second album, Cognizant, in May last year,
Mm.
and for me and the guys, I'll speak about it in that way. For the five of us, getting those albums out and releasing the music was always most important. But I just the spark just sort of faded for me personally,
Mm.
and it's just me being in a band, and also a lot I had to do with it was still being alive. Maybe it's time to end it for a while or end it until the unforeseeable future was where I land. Um, so putting it to the guys, and saying, look, this is where I'm at. I did say it a little while ago, and we'll just sort of see how we go. And the first offer was obviously, hey, if you guys wanted to get someone else, then I'll be your biggest supporter. But my guys are incredible, and they're like, it just won't be the same. And obviously, they had to think about that when I nearly wasn't able to play in the band a couple of years ago. But collectively, we've decided just to finish off while it's in a good place. And 7 years, and it's really special because it's one thing for me personally. It's one thing to still be here, but to see it end is actually a really beautiful thing for me where I stand, because it's in a really good place, and my four brothers are still okay, and we're still very, very close. So I don't think it could get any better.
Yeah.
There's only love.
Yeah. It's the thing is, like, people have to look back and go, remember when Massic dropped that shit album? Or remember when Massic sucked? I don't think it's the same thing as I put it as like the Slayer analogy. They were always just fucking balls to the wall from like day one, you know?
Yeah. I appreciate that so much, man. We've been very lucky. I think 2018 was our year. Like, that was just ridiculous. We dropped Redshift after this album, and we played Dead of Winter, and we just. And there was a few years there for everyone that just sucked. Like, obviously during those few years, I don't want to even mutter the words because it's fucked. But where everyone, because we collectively just lost part of our souls, in my opinion, and I'll tell you one thing, I've run out of shit to say. I'll be dead honest. I'm not an angry dude anymore. I don't do well with festering. I was only saying to my wife earlier, we were talking about some decisions we're making where everyone's having to make financially, at the moment. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm so sick of thinking about the negatives in life, and we just got to haul ass and get through this. And I've got a great partner in crime there. But as far as it goes for music, I'm nearly 40. I want to do some other things as well. And some of those things are just plain old living, it's weird. I've been in bands since I was 17 years old, and that's enough time for me. I grow until I'm 60 and do it straight, but just not right now. I've got some things I want to take care of. There's some things I want to do, and I'll let my boys speak on what they're doing. But all I've got to say is they've got some really cool things coming up in their lives. One's got a music project. Rashid's always got stuff going on. He's
always.
But Chris has got a great music project coming up, and our drummer Al, like, he's just such a talented dude. He's always got stuff going on, and our awesome Shane, he's got a kid on the way, and it's
right. Yeah.
I'm more excited about what they've got going on, because what I've got going on is awesome. But I can't wait to play that show with them, and because the thing is, I'm still in contact with the guys, so it's not like it's nothing bad.
Yeah,
it's great. Like, it's not a bad thing.
100%, and I think you kind of touched on a good point too. Of it's again like the Henry Rollins thing, like how he is. Like I don't think you'll ever see him back on stage screaming his ass off in a fucking punk band again, dude. Like he did what he did with Black Flag, he did what he did with the Rollins band, and I think sometimes people forget that being in a band is like one aspect of the many kaleidoscope visions of what is available to do with the music scene, and you're doing stuff with Heavy Mag, which I know is awesome, and you've done some great write-ups and interviews and all that kind of stuff. But I did want to ask, because it is as you said, there's been a lot of reflection going on for you at the moment, and just as someone that I look up to in the scene, knowing just the amount of things that you've done and the life you've lived and all of that, I personally am curious, like, what are some of your greatest lessons that you've learned over your 23-year career as a vocalist? What are some of the bigger lessons that you've learned in your time as a musician?
The biggest one is always keeping a project going. Unfortunately, I don't need to mention names, but there's been a couple of times, and I've been pretty honest about this because it's very reflecting for me. But I'm not in the business. I was never in the business to lose friendships, and I probably lost a couple there. And that hurt the worst, just the way in dealing with things in bands and accountabilities and all that. But when it comes down to it, those friendships are all we've got, and brotherhood, we call each other brother. When you're in the scene, it's everyone's family. And sometimes it just doesn't go the right way and things get misconstrued. So the biggest lesson is if you can't keep open and honest about being in a relationship with someone, which is being in a band, then there requires maintenance and requires some honest conversations. And I wish I was a little bit more transparent at times on telling people where I was at, because I think those friendships would have stayed intact. That's my biggest one. Oh God.
That's a great piece of advice.
Yeah. I think I never experienced this, but I only cared about the band members' opinions on the music we were making, as far as vocals went, and I have to include Vinny, who produced the last album, because he's a legend, and he's in Dead Letter Circus, and he's just the coolest guy. The only opinion I ever cared about was the band members and the producer, and my opinion as well, which is very valid because my fucking vocals. Yeah. So creating, I guess we have to choose what's more important. Do we want to impress others and sacrifice the music, or just do the music and see if people like it? That's great. And that's not more advice. That's just more what I loved about where I got myself. I contoured myself to only care about those albums because they're forever. Those albums are forever. Live shows, if a band's a great live band, that's great. But if it doesn't ceases to exist, like in this example, then I want to be very proud of the vocals and the music that I put down. So that's another one. So be proud of it for yourself before you. I think it's better to be proud of it yourself than expect praise. I think that's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Because things change. Oh, one. I'll give you three. One.
Yes, please.
One.
Yes, please.
One more. A good financial plan for the band. Yeah, that would be the other one. Yeah, having an agreed financial plan is so great because Massive got to a stage where we got it pretty locked down, and it was really good. And we never spoke about money for years. For years, we had our amount per week with rehearsals and we had our like bean counter, which was Shane. It's like, we've got an album coming up, guys. We need to outlay some cash, and it was really organized. It was cool, and in hindsight, right from the beginning of that band, it would have been like, if you want to join Massic, it's going to cost you $50 a week, in or out. Like, because the cool thing is with that band was we never in 7 years. I was saying to someone the other day, in 7 years, there was 3 hours of Massic I didn't like. 3 hours,
right?
Like that's like rounding off an hour too.
Hands down, yeah.
Hands down, and that was because we had to say goodbye to a couple of members, and over the course of the band, and that was it. That was the only time, and that sucks. That part really sucks. So to recap, friendships, keep them honest. the people in the band are the only ones whose opinions really matter, and yours number one, and three, a good financial plan, because being in a band costs a lot of cash, and
Yep.
and having all members, you'll never get any complacency. You will never get any anyone being bewildered, overwhelmed, anxiety, all those things, and you can just play your tunes. It's like, oh, we've got an album coming out. It's going to cost 10 grand. Like, we're releasing it in a year. Do the sums. Like,
Yep.
We're making no money off shows.
Yeah.
So that's not our income. I can't forcibly sell merch as much as I've tried. And yes, we're all. Oh yeah. One more thing.
Ooh. Okay.
With your merch, always buy more large shirts.
Yes.
Fuck.
As me and Brad always say, there's not enough fat cunt sizes in the world, mate.
Oh my god. We ran every print we did. I think we did 5 in Massic. We ran out of large every time.
Yep. First one. That neck sells. That neck sells.
That neck sells. Absolutely. And a bit of medium, but when you've got the girls, and if you're just getting the unisex type shirt, the girls have got to think of some other things, so they want it a bit looser. And metalheads very rarely, and I'm generalizing, they like to let that shirt flow a bit, because they're going to wear the shit out of it. It's going to get washed about 1,000, well, depending on who you are, 1,000 times, because it's going to get worn. Because it's going to get worn 2,000 times, and a metalhead doesn't let the shirt like, oh, it's good looking a little bit grey. I better stop wearing it. I've seen some tatty, some falling to pieces shirts of ours and hats of ours.
Limited edition faded black.
Yeah, Jeffro from Piston Fist and our buddy Trev, they have ran our merch into the ground, and it's great.
Yeah. And that's got to make you feel good that you guys were doing something that was not only perceived right between the band, but to other people that got to see it that way too,
Oh, dude. As I've always said, the 5 opinions in the band matter. Anything else is extra.
Yeah.
The way that, and I can speak for the Victorian scene too, the way I was treated for 12 years in the, oh God, so that'd be about right. So for the 13 years that I was in the Victorian scene and the 10 years that I was in the Brisbane scene, though it got way more emotional in the Brisbane scene when you nearly die, that kind of helps that. When I was in Abract for 5 years, it's the way I was treated for the 2 years I was in Evil Eye, and for the 7 years that I was in Massic, the best humans. I have always been, like, I know that, and it's like not even music. I know that if I was in trouble, I have about 100 solid people I could call.
Damn straight, bro.
Yeah.
The one
100
thing,
plus. Shit.
Yeah, man. Oh, dude, and that's when you know you're doing something right, bro. And I've got two more things. I got one more question. I got one more thing I've got to say. And I always say this to you, and I always fucking will. I think you've got the most brutal intro to a song that I will ever fucking hear, and I think it was at Jace's brain tumor benefit show.
All right.
That you did, and you're like, this is a song about when I nearly died. If anyone's like, this is a song when I was sad, or like, this song makes you angry, it's like, yeah, that's cool, but Simon wins every time.
And the cool thing is with that song, that's the last song we and may be for the rest of time. That's the last song technically we ever recorded in Massic, vocally anyway.
Wow.
That was a song that we weren't happy with vocally. The music was killer. My vocals were balls. And it had this like earworm songs. I love a lot of the last Trivium album was an earworm beast.
Yep.
The guys from Space Goat in Victoria, my buddies down there, just released a new single, and I just can't get it out of my head. Just thinking of bands off the top of my head. Now, we had an earworm melody in that song vocally, but it was like It was like an ear tumor. It was the worst. And me and Chris were like, he's like, yeah, so we gotta do something about that, eh? Like, it's fucking shit. Like, but Chris is too nice to say it's fucking shit. But it was shit. It was shit. And then I had this little heart thing happen, and then I lived, and then and I said to Chris, and Chris and I were sitting. I think I was sitting in hospital, and he was visiting me. He visited me like countless times. And I said, we're going to do something about that when I knew that I could still play. And I said, we're going to do something about that song. Hey, he's like, yeah, we could probably write it. We could write it about something, I reckon, something else. And all right. And during one of my kinesiology appointments, my lady, Annika, said to me, she goes, Simon, you surrendered to it. That's part of the reason you lived. And I went, oh. I said, you just named the title of this track that we're having trouble with. And she's like, oh, really? I went, yeah, it's going to be called Surrender. So that's the backstory of that.
Nice. Wow, I didn't
and
know
then we
that.
wrote it. Yeah, and then we wrote it about my insane journey of what I went through. It's not for everyone, but what I went through spiritually. I'm not talking about like finding God or anything like that. That's all part of it, but it's not for. It's Spirituality is something I'm just starting to learn about, really, because it's helping save my life. Mentally, I mean, and I'm not running off with the Jehovah's or anything like that. Each to their own. Or the Krishnas, they're all cool.
Yep.
They make good food, but spirituality has been, and learning about history has really helped me, and that song is about that. You know, just to really babble on about it. But just to give an insight to that song, because it's a very special thing what you said, so I wanted to give it some weight.
No,
yeah,
I appreciate
so thank
that.
you.
I appreciate
Yeah.
that, dude. Now, my last question, and usually I would ask this about an entire career, but I'm going to ask this specifically about Massic. If there's
Cool.
one show you could go back and relive that you did with Massic for whatever reason, what show would it be and why?
Okay. Dead of Winter 2018.
Yep.
But although we had a fill-in, which was really, really cool, I wish Shane was there. He was overseas.
Yeah.
Are we still there? He was overseas. Oh man. Yeah, that's the show.
Can I ask
but
why? Can I ask why that show?
Okay, so that was the point where we felt, that's funny. Magic's a weird thing. We have never gone, we're doing well. We've never done that. We don't do that. It's like not in us. Like, I think we're becoming successful. And we don't even say that to each other. It's like, we've got a show, we're going to bring the thunder. We love playing our songs, and we want to see people like mosh and lose their shit and connect. Not to get this whole connection thing's new to me, so I don't want to go on about it. But and I remember turning around. Now we had Dave from. He's now a Gutterfire, I think. He played for us. I might be wrong. Anyway, he was in Elephant. He's been in heaps of bands, and so we had him fill in. And I remember turning around at that show. We played in the middle bar area there, like the outside show. And I remember I was like, I'd had knee troubles the whole, like I wore a knee brace for 8 years, right? So that stage is really, really slippery. And I remember getting up on stage, and we're like, all right, so this is happening. We're all ready to rock and roll. I remember looking at Chris and looking at Rashid and just turning around, and there were like 600 people there. The place was packed, and I just went, "Oh my!" Like that was the show where I went, "Oh shit!" Like this is going to be this is going to be a riot, and this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And I guess when you have no expectation, it was just nice to turn around and be just like, wow, like this venue kicks ass, like the Jube's the best. And we turn around and it was on. Like it was and like the moment we started, like Miko is like on the crowd. I think it was his birthday, and
Oh, I
you
love
know,
that guy.
certain people. Yeah, I know. Certain people were making it very entertaining to be on stage alone. But that I told a bit of a porky pie that day. I said that was the first crowd surf I'd ever done. When I left my old band Abreact, I handed the microphone to the new singer.
Mm.
Um,
He'll be back.
and hey, Matt, here's the mic, and he took over his
Yeah.
place in the band. And I ran up and crowd surfed that night, but I technically wasn't in a band then. As soon as I handed the mic over, I wasn't in a band. So anyway,
So there's the
yeah,
fine there's the fine print for you.
yeah, I know, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
always, yeah. People always. I've got a few friends that say, Simon, your nuances are very funny, so I'll take that one. But that's the show, and another one at the same venue, simply because I knew that floor would eventually cave in. That was a scary show. It was the year after, I think. Oh, it was Halloween Hysteria. Yeah, that
Mm.
was scary.
Yeah.
Can I pick one? Can I pick one more?
Yeah,
Sorry.
absolutely. Absolutely.
The the floor show at the first ever Walla show we did, Wallapalooza show we did on the floor show out the side. That went nuts. That
Mm.
was bullshit. Um, the second year was nuts. The other year we couldn't play because I was sick, which sucked. But that first Walla was out of control. I remember I got to do a crowd. I ran up and did a crowd surf off the fold back and landed my landing very well. And there's a really funny video I've got on my phone. Actually, I've still got it, of Paul Moss, which is Scott from the now no longer with us minus
It's
life.
live.
So
Yeah.
Paul Moss is their manager, and there's a video where he like sees me. His head turns and sees me take off into the crowd, and then he turns around like a proud dad, and he's like, "Yes, he landed it!" And it's all on video, and I love it so much.
I'll share my only crowd
Oh,
surfing story, and I'll never do it again because I've learned that I am too
sure.
big to crowd surf. It was trying to
Oh,
do it at Lamb of God, and I went to like a whole bunch of these big dudes around me at the river stage. I'm like, pick me up, I want to crowd surf,
yeah.
and they did. I think I got an all of like -2 inches, and they just let me go, and they're like, nah, we can't do it, and I fell straight on my
Oh,
back. I was like so paranoid. I'm like, I've broken my back. I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my
yeah.
legs. Oh no. I immediately got up like 3 seconds later and I was fine. And I'm like, yeah,
Oh
that's my
no.
one and only. I'm retiring it. I'm not the crowd surfing
Oh,
type of guy. So I'm glad
oh
that you
man.
got a couple of successful crowd surfs in, man. Because yeah, it's
Oh,
something else.
dude. Well, I want to have a couple at the last show.
And actually,
My
forgive me.
favorite.
This will be my last question actually for you.
Yeah,
What can
sure.
we expect at your last show? Is there anything that you're able to give away, or are you just wanting to keep it a complete secret for the show?
No, I want excitement. I
Nice.
want a party. I want a party. Everyone that has ever supported us, if they could get there, that's the first and foremost.
Oh, we're going.
Um,
I'm going. I know Luke
yeah,
has got tickets to go. We're super
awesome.
excited, man.
Flaming Wreckage, the Black Swamp, from Crisis to Collapse. Now, we were lucky enough to have wanted to pick, and it's so cliche, but there was like 10 off the bat, 10, 15 bands. And we went, right, okay, so let's start by asking. And we asked the first three that we wanted on. They were the first three for whatever reason. We have our own as a collective. And they all said yes. First three
Mm,
bands, and we went, oh, well, there. And then we had to move the date. It was meant to be next Friday.
mm.
And they were all able to do it. Like, we're talking a band from Byron Bay, a band from Sydney, and a
Ben
band
from
from
Canberra.
Black Swamp being from Gold Coast, Brisbane. You never know with those guys. They're always
Yeah,
wandering.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so, so yeah. To expect the zoo is a really slippery floor. So at least expect Andrew Bailey or Jono to slip over and crack their heads like they have 4 or 5 times.
I'll
Um,
stand behind them. I'll make sure they don't. I'll be paramedics running side of stage, man.
uh, we're gonna play. We backed ourselves and we're playing last. because we wanted to give good positions to the bands as well. It's our last ever show. We're going to play some old stuff, which is cool. We've got like five or six off the first album. I think five. Yeah. We have a special guest on one of the songs. And normally it's vocalists. Like the cool thing about it's, I don't think you can call a guest vocalist in Massic a special guest anymore. It's like it's always happening. It's just part. It's part of it.
Yeah.
So we got our buddy Chris, who is in 010. We'll get Stoyan from Adriatic up, of course.
My man.
Whoever else, we don't give a shit. Like if there's a mic there, get up. As long as you know the words. It's a bit weird. It's a bit weird when someone doesn't know the words. It's weirder when the vocalist doesn't know the words. That's really weird. So we won't do that. So we have one of our. We have Ricky from. Well, he was in the Black Swamp. He was in Massic, so he's actually going to be there to play bass on a track. So that's going to be sick.
Oh, hell yeah!
So yeah. And I might have had to keep it a secret. Who cares? Like he's going to be there. It's going to be fun. Like, So he's coming down from Mackay for that. So it's pretty special. I can't remember the track he's playing, so I'll keep that part a surprise because I can't remember. Anyway, so. That's what to expect. A balls to the wall, a 40-minute Massic show, which is like, we're like a rule of 30 minutes. Like, and that's not because we're like shitheads, so that we're playing 10 minutes longer than normal. Drummer, it's fucking horrible. So,
oh god, it's just the worst thing I can think of, man. Fuck. How dare you take 10 minutes of my life that I'll never get back? Fuck.
And I don't even wear a mask like you crazy bastards. Like fuck that. Like fuck that.
Yeah.
Like,
dude, you don't have to. You've got that awesome stash going, mate. That's
oh
plenty.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Well, I was going to say I'm a happily married man, but I really keep the mustache for the dudes. Like I really do. Like,
is there any other reason? You don't do it for your missus, man. That's for sure.
So that's what to expect. It's going to be a great night. It's on a Friday night, which I've got this thing, man. When you party on Friday night, Saturday recovery. You get into Saturday night, and you're like, I feel pretty good. Like, look, I reckon I could watch an entire series of like we could do some gardening. I love partying on Friday night. Personally, I love Friday because when you party on a Saturday, you got Sunday, and then you got. Man, I fucking hate Mondays, hey. Monday mornings Mondays are the worst.
Can really suck a fat one.
And when you're hungover, you sometimes end up with a bangover of Monday morning. So
yep.
It's a full work day. Everyone busts their ass to get to Friday. And logistically with bands coming up, we've got to do it in a certain way, but get everyone to load in and relax.
Yep.
And then we're going to cruise into play 4 or 5 hours of tunes and do that, and that's that. So,
fucking A. Well, we're so excited. So look, I'm going to quickly plug the details of this show. So basically this one is brought to you by Schema Collective and Heavy Magazine.
Yep.
It is the end of an era. It is the final Brisbane show. You've got From Crisis to Collapse, you've got the Black Swamp, and you've got Flaming Wreckage. It is at the Zoo. It is March 24th. You can get your tickets through OzTix for whether there will be any left or not by the time it comes closer to the show, so make sure you get your fucking tickets right now. And man, I can't say thank you enough, Simon. Luke did jump in quietly towards the end of the the interview. So before we end it, Luke, did you have any questions you quickly wanted to ask Simon?
I don't think we have time before the stream. I reckon I'll get to it on stream.
Yeah, okay, cool. Not a worry. Not a worry. All right, well, Simon, thank you so much for your time, buddy. We're going to get ready and kick into a stream, so love you guys. Make sure you get your ass to the show, because it's going to be an emotional roller coaster of drunken mayhem, happiness, smiles, all that kind of shit, and it's going to be a fucking night, so it's going to be one that goes down in the history books, that's for sure. So until then, guys, thank you again, Simon. And
later, man.
Thank you for everybody that's tuning into this interview, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, man. Later.
Laters.